Have you ever been left wondering why someone suddenly disappeared from your life, or why you were fed a web of lies instead of the truth? It's frustrating, confusing, and deeply hurtful. Today, I want to dive into the reasons behind why men ghost and lie, the hard truth that no one likes to talk about. One of the biggest reasons men ghost or lie is emotional avoidance. For many, confronting their feelings or yours feels overwhelming. So instead of addressing it head on, they avoid the uncomfortable emotions entirely. It's easier for them to vanish rather than face a conversation they aren't ready to have. They might think that by disappearing, they're sparing both themselves and you from discomfort, but in reality, it leaves a wake of confusion and pain. Another reason, fear of rejection. Men often ghost because they're afraid of being the one rejected, so they take the first step in withdrawing to protect themselves. It's not that they don't care, it's that they care too much about their own ego. The idea of being vulnerable and potentially hearing something they don't want to hear terrifies them. So they lie or simply disappear to avoid feeling less than. Sometimes the issue is that they aren't even sure what they want. A lack of clarity in their intentions is a big factor. When someone isn't clear on where they're going or what they want from a relationship, the easiest course of action is to lie or ghost. Instead of being upfront about their confusion, they mask it. Rather than have an honest conversation about their uncertainties, they take the easy way out. Let's take a deeper look at emotional avoidance, which is one of the biggest reasons why men ghost or lie. It's something many of us have experienced, yet it remains one of the hardest behaviors to understand when you're on the receiving end. To put it simply, emotional avoidance is when someone dodges dealing with their own feelings or the feelings of others because it makes them uncomfortable. Instead of confronting a situation that may lead to a difficult conversation or emotional vulnerability, they choose to avoid it altogether. Ghosting or lying becomes a quick escape from what they see as an impending emotional confrontation. Men, in particular, are often conditioned from a young age to suppress their emotions. Society teaches them to equate vulnerability with weakness, which leads to discomfort in expressing how they truly feel. When faced with the possibility of an emotionally charged conversation, whether it's breaking things off, admitting they're not ready for commitment, or simply expressing their confusion, they can freeze up or flee. Ghosting in this context is the ultimate form of emotional avoidance. By disappearing, they don't have to deal with the potential backlash of disappointing you, hurting your feelings, or even seeing the pain they cause. It's an escape route to dodge the emotional weight of responsibility. Another aspect of emotional avoidance is that many men struggle to process their own feelings. They may sense discomfort, uncertainty, or a lack of connection, but they don't know how to put that into words. Instead of navigating through their emotions, they choose to avoid them rather than having an honest dialogue. They opt to lie, telling you what they think you want to hear so they can delay dealing with the real issue. It's important to realize that this avoidance isn't just about avoiding your emotions, it's about avoiding their own. They don't want to face the guilt, anxiety, or confusion that might come with having to tell the truth. So they take the path of least resistance, which can feel like the safer, more comfortable option in the short term. But while emotional avoidance may save them discomfort in the moment, it creates long-term damage, both to the relationship and to their own emotional growth. Ghosting or lying doesn't make the problem disappear. It just prolongs the inevitable confrontation, leaving unresolved feelings and confusion in its wake. The sad reality is that emotional avoidance often perpetuates a cycle. A man who habitually avoids emotions won't grow emotionally because he's never facing the situations that challenge him to mature. He misses the opportunity to practice vulnerability, communication, and accountability. Over time, this can leave him stuck in a pattern of shallow relationships and unsatisfying connections, never truly developing the emotional tools needed for deeper, more fulfilling bonds. So when someone ghosts or lies due to emotional avoidance, understand that it's more about their internal struggle than anything to do with you. They are avoiding facing their own discomfort rather than addressing the situation with honesty and integrity. While it's painful to be on the receiving end of this, it's important to remember that their emotional avoidance is a reflection of where they are in their personal development, not a reflection of your worth or what you deserve. Let's dive deeper into the fear of rejection, which plays a significant role in why men ghost and lie. Fear of rejection is a powerful motivator, and it can shape behavior in ways that seem confusing or hurtful, especially when it comes to relationships. At its core, the fear of rejection stems from a deep-rooted concern that someone will not be accepted, valued, or loved. This fear can be incredibly intense because rejection isn't just about hearing the word no or being turned away. It's often interpreted as a blow to one's self-worth. For many men, this fear is particularly heightened as they may tie their sense of identity or masculinity to whether they are accepted or successful in relationships. When a man is afraid of rejection, he might adopt behaviors like ghosting or lying as self-protective mechanisms. In the early stages of dating or a relationship, things might seem fine, but as emotions deepen, his fear may rise. He might start to wonder, what if she doesn't feel the same way? Or what if I put myself out there and she rejects me? These fears can become so overwhelming that instead of staying in the situation and risking vulnerability, he retreats. This retreat often takes the form of ghosting because, in his mind, disappearing spares him from facing the pain of potential rejection. It's almost like he's trying to get out before he can be pushed out. He may not even realize that ghosting itself causes emotional harm to the other person. He's too caught up in his own fear to see it. To him, walking away quietly without confrontation feels safer because he doesn't have to hear the words he dreads. However, in doing so, he leaves the other person hurt and confused. Fear of rejection also manifests in dishonesty. When a man senses that rejection might be on the horizon, he may start lying to prolong the relationship or to avoid having uncomfortable conversations. He might say what he thinks you want to hear because, in his mind, it buys him more time and reduces the chance of immediate rejection. For instance, he might pretend to be more interested in a serious relationship than he actually is, or he might avoid telling the truth about his feelings because he fears that doing so will cause a relationship to end. The underlying belief here is, if I tell the truth, I'll be rejected. If I show my true self, I'll be judged or unwanted. Men who fear rejection often struggle with vulnerability, and lying feels like a shield, a way to protect their ego and self-esteem from taking a hit. But this temporary avoidance comes at a high cost. While lying might protect him from immediate rejection, it also builds an unstable foundation of mistrust. which can lead to a more painful fallout later. Moreover, this fear of rejection doesn't just stem from the fear of being rejected by a partner, it can also come from a fear of rejecting someone else. Men who fear being the bad guy or causing someone pain may avoid telling the truth or ghost because they can't bear the idea of being seen as the one doing the rejecting. They may lie about their feelings to avoid confrontation, thinking that ghosting or softening the truth is less hurtful. Ironically, in trying to avoid rejection themselves or rejecting someone else, they end up causing even more pain through their avoidance. This fear often runs deep and is built on past experiences. Men who've experienced rejection before, either in relationships, friendships, or other areas of life, may develop an intense anxiety around it. Maybe they've been hurt before and they want to protect themselves from ever feeling that pain again. So they stay emotionally distant, and when things get too close for comfort, they disappear or lie to keep rejection at bay. At the heart of this behavior is a desire to avoid vulnerability. Rejection feels like a direct assault on one's vulnerability, and when a man fears rejection, it often means he has trouble embracing that vulnerability in the first place. Vulnerability requires a certain level of emotional courage, an ability to say, "This is me, flaws and all, and I hope you'll accept me." But for someone who fears rejection, that leap feels too dangerous, and ghosting or lying feels like the safer option. However, the paradox is that this avoidance of rejection ultimately leads to more isolation. By ghosting or lying, men inadvertently reject themselves. They never give others the chance to accept them, flaws and all. They shut down any possibility of real connection because they're too focused on protecting themselves from potential hurt. So, if you've ever been ghosted or lied to because of someone's fear of rejection, know that this behavior says far more about their own internal battles than it does about you. It's a reflection of their fear of vulnerability, their struggle with self-worth, and their need to protect themselves from pain. It's not about you being unworthy of love or affection. It's about their inability to face the fear of being vulnerable enough to truly connect.